Hi, and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. This car, it should look familiar to you. It's been here not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. This is the one that we had to change the blower motor, we had to change the accumulator, and we also had to change the main head unit inside the dashboard for the air conditioner, the climate control unit. So it may look familiar to you. Today it's here because we have grinding brakes. We are going to change all 4 brakes all the way around. I did tell him about that the last time he was in, but he didn't bring it in until it started grinding on the right front, which is irrelevant because at that point the rotors were already shot anyway. I could tell when it was in here the last time the rotors were wiped out. You drove it and the brakes pulsated like mad. So I'm going to bring you up there. I'm going to do the front. I did the left front already. That's finished. We're going to go around to the right side and we're going to do the right side. I'll show you what tools you're going to need and how to make sure that the slide pins are working properly on the calipers and you're not going to stay binding up. The left side was not grinding, the right side was grinding, so we have to make sure we check those slide pins, and also the brake hardware to make sure that the hardware is allowing the brake pan to slide back and forth. So all right, let's get up there and let's get started. Okay, there's an example of what kind of tools and parts we're going to need. We're going to need a new rotor, of course. We're going to need new brake pads. We are going to use the new hardware kit because it is extremely rusty. Some synthetic brake grease, a pry bar to push the pistons back in, a screwdriver, a socket on a very long ratchet. That's a 14 millimeter, just so you know. This one here is a 17 millimeter. That's to take the mounting bracket off. A file or sandpaper to clean up any kind of rust that may be on the mounting bracket. A tool to push the pistons back in, a piece of wire to hang the caliper so it's not just hanging there, and of course my trusty rusty hammer here. Alright, so what we're going to do first is we're going to come in here, we're going to pry in here to push that piston back into the bore as far as we possibly can. If it's like the other one, we're not going to be able to push it back in too far because it's solid rust, but we'll see how far we get. Then we're going to take this rotor off of the car itself, throw it in the trash, because as you can see, it's dead wood. We are going to change the hardware, which is right here, and we are going to lubricate all these points. So, all right, first thing we'll do is let's take out these bolts here after we push that piston back in, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we're just going to push the piston back in if we can. We just get in here like this, and just hold slight pressure on it. I can feel it pushing back very slowly, but not really very good. Okay. All right, so now that we have that piston pushed back in, we see here that the slide pins are working correctly. These 2 pieces here are the slide pins. They slide back and forth nice and freely, so we know these are good. We just need to lubricate them. All right, now as you know, counterclockwise is off, so we just break these loose now. And then we can take these 2 bolts out. Don't lose them because we are going to have to use these to put it back together. We're going to take our hanger and we're just going to take the caliper for now and we're going to push it off to the side. Now you can see these pistons did not push in all the way. We will need to push them in further. So we're just going to hang this off to the side just like that so it's not really in our way. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out that 17 millimeter there and there. Now obviously if you have air and you want to use an air gun, you can, but I know most of you guys got to do it by hand, so that's the way I'm going to do it. Sorry for my back going to you. Now the brake pads here you can see, they're dead. No doubt about that. Same thing on this one here. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to put this off to the side for now, but we are going to change the hardware. And the way you do that is just take these little clips here, and you get in here with a screwdriver. If it don't move, you get in here with a screwdriver, and you just pry them out, just like that. Right? Same thing on the bottom here. We just pry it out. Now for now, we're just going to put this on the side for now, but we are going to clean this up down inside here. You can see a significant amount of rust in here. We are going to clean up this rust in here and here before we put this back together. Rotor off. Now this in here, we're going to clean this up a little bit. Actually, we may not even have to. This doesn't really look too bad. There's actually grease on it, believe it or not. Somebody greased it. All right, so this is actually not so bad. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to put our new rotor back on here. Now, before you put a rotor on, as you know, the rotors come with an oily grease on here to keep it from rusting during the warehousing time. So we're going to clean this up real good with some brake cleaner, and then we'll put it back on. So you just spray the rotor lightly. I know somebody's going to say, how come you did it on the other side away from the camera? But okay. All right, and we take the rotor, just put it on like this. And now you were probably looking before saying, what has he got that nut there for? But this nut is actually serves a purpose. Just put it on here like this. Screw a nut or a lug nut onto it. And now it holds the rotor so it's not moving around while you're working. Okay. Okay, so next thing we're going to do now is I am going to clean up this rotor, this caliper mounting bracket. We are going to file this out a little bit here, and here, and here, and here, and then we'll put those two pieces back in. So let me do that, and we'll come right back. Okay, now after we have it cleaned up, we just take a little bit of the synthetic brake grease and put it in here, like this. And then we'll take our clips, our mounting brackets I should say, and we just put them on here like this, and we'll push them down all the way in and snap them into place. So let me do that. Okay, that's the one. See how it goes in there, just like that. And now we'll turn it around. And we'll do the exact same thing on this side here. Just like that. Just make sure that this portion right inside there, that little piece right there, make sure that's pushed down all the way, or it'll come in contact with the rotor and it'll squeal like crazy. All right. And we just put some silicone on any place that the brake pad is going to touch. We silicone just like that. We're going to pull out these slide pins right here. Tough to do. Up in the air like this. Now, what we're going to do, just so you know, we're going to take out the slide pins like this. I'm going to clean it off with some brake cleaner, and then I'm going to lubricate it and put it right back in. So let's spray with some cleaner. Wipe it off. And then after we wipe that down, we just put a little bit of the synthetic brake grease on here. And then we always make sure it goes back in the same hole that it came out of. You don't want to switch them around. They have to go the same way. That little piece, that little collar right there has got to snap back up into that. See how it snapped back up? That's how it's got to go. Let's do this one. reason they have to go back in the same holes, because one of them you'll see has a little tiny, each bolt is different than the other. This one has a little rubber, like a washer on it here, that needs to go in the correct location. Usually it's on the upper. This goes in here, like that. Push it in and make sure it snaps in all the way, which it did. All right, now, something that's a little different that with these brake pads over any other brake pads I had, this customer, I might add, brought his own stuff to me. They actually have an inner and an outer. Even though the brake pads look exactly the same, for some reason they're inner and outer. They have a different color coding, and it tells you inner and outer. All right, so that's the way we're going to do it. This one is the inner, so we're just going to put it in here like this, and we'll slide it in. Yeah, you can put this. You can put the pads in now, or you can put the pads in later on, whatever works for you. Right? I always put it in here now. But before we go any further, we're going to push that piston back in right there, because we have to push it further back. Remember? All right, so we'll try to do this up here like this. Put the brake pad in here like this. This brake pad. Let me set this up and then I'll explain to you what I'm doing. Okay, see how the brake pads are in here now? And then this tool pushes those pistons back in all the way. There's different kinds of tools, but this one is one that I've had for almost forever. All right, this pushes the pistons back in, nice and easy. And once it stops moving, then you know you're in as far as it can go, like that. And then we'll take it back off. I'm just going to take the pads and put them down for a second. And we are going to hang this back up again. Like that. We'll just lift this up. This is how the pads are in, inner and outer, like I said, marked on there. Put it over the caliper, like that. Squeezed them closed. And now we can reinstall the 17mm bolts. We're just going to catch them. We're not going to tighten it in yet. And now once you have both of them caught, then you can turn it in all the way with your ratchet. Okay, now there is torque specs for these. I will torque them in later on. If you need the specs, just let me know, and I'll get them for you. All right, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to take our caliper. Now remember what I told you, everywhere that the brake pad touches, you want to lubricate. That includes the piston, both of them, and as well as the mounting on the caliper itself where it touches into the brake pads. All right, now we'll just take it, lay it in here like this. And we're just going to rotate these mounting hardware so that it fits in there properly, making sure that this hose is not twisted in a circle. I've seen that frequently, where the hoses are actually twisted. All right, we'll catch both of the 14mm bolts. All right, and then now after they're both caught, we can tighten them up. That's it. This one is finished. So let me just take these off and I'll explain to you what I did, and you'll know for sure that you're 100% perfect. Okay. So what we did is we put our new rotor on. Of course, we cleaned the whole thing up with brake cleaner. We installed our brake hardware. We lubricated every place that the brake pad is going to touch. We tightened up those 17mm bolts here, as well as down over here. We put our new brake pads into the mounting bracket, and we put our caliper back on and lubricated the slide pins and tightened up these bolts here. So that's it. Front brakes are done. So let's go to the back, and we'll continue in the back. Okay, so here we are in the back now. Now this is obviously the left side rear. I did take apart the right side rear, but I wanted to stop on that right side. I wanted to show you something before I went any further. All right, but let me explain what we're going to do first. Is we're going to come in here with a pry bar, and we're going to push that piston all the way back in as far as we can. We're going to take out that 10 millimeter there, and we're going to move the caliper off to the side. We are going to take off this hardware kit here, and we're going to replace it, and then we're going to take this rotor off the car. That's where I'm going to show you how you run into a little bit of a problem. Sometimes taking off these rotors are a real pain in the rear end because they get rust lips on the inside, and with that rust lip is what keeps the drum or rotor from sliding off. So what I'm going to show you is how to take off the adjustment on the parking brake. And the way you do that is you come up underneath here. Let's get a light in here so you can see. And you see right here, you take out this little piece right here. It's a little piece of rubber. You're probably going to have to use a screwdriver. Oh, come right out. All right, we take that out right there. And then we're going to get in here with a screwdriver, and we're going to back off that wheel. Let me just show you on the other side which wheel I'm talking about. This is the wheel that I'm talking about. This is your adjuster for your parking brake. So you just come in through the back. Let me grab a screwdriver, I'll show you. Okay, what you would do is you would come in through the back this way with the screwdriver just like that, and then you would take off the adjustment of the parking brake by just reducing the diameter of this here. It'll actually shrink it down. So you would get in here and you would take the adjustment off just like that. Now one way is obviously going to be making it tighter, and the other way is going to be making it looser, so make sure you're turning in the correct direction. Now the reason I didn't put this back together is I want to show you, after we put the rotor on the other side, how to adjust this to the correct drag. So all right, let's get back on the other side and continue over there. Your pry bar, and you put it back in there until it comes out right on this side, right up in here. It comes out through the opening, and then you just keep pressure on this, and you're going to push that piston back into the bore. Now remember, it's very rusty, so it may go in slowly or it may go in quick, and that one went in pretty quick. Alright, so now our piston is pushed back in. We're going to make sure it's recessed all the way in. Okay, it's all the way in there. Now we want to make sure these slide pins are okay, so we'll slide the caliper back and forth. It's a little stiff, but it does slide, so the slide pins are actually good. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out those two 10 millimeter bolts right there. Very simple. Particular car, they're same length, but always make sure that your bolts are the same one. Sometimes you'll find a different bolt top and bottom, but not in this case. And we're going to take this off. Now these are a little bit rusty, so you may have to just give it a little bit of a pry to get it to move. This piece here we're just going to push down. That's the anti-rattle. And we push this off like that. This comes right out. And we'll put this to the side for now. And we'll come back to that in just a minute. But we're going to put this off to the side now as well. This one we're going to put in the trash pile because you know this is dead. But you see how this is? Let me show you. Okay. This is the old brake pad. This is the new brake pads. Now this one is an outer. It tells you right on the outside, outer. But you see this is in a different location than this one. So we know this one is not the right one. This one is the correct one. The bracket is in the correct location, the anti-rattle, and everything looks fine. Alright, so this is the one that we're going to put on this side here. So we'll put that there for now. Now let's take that rotor off. Let's see what happens. Okay, now this rotor came right off. If it didn't come off, then you would adjust it off like I did on the other side. So let's take this out. The other side did not come off. But what happens is, in the light in here so you can see, what happens is you can see this rust lip. I don't know if you can see that. Where are you? You see this rust lip inside there on the drum? That's what causes it not to come off. This gets all extremely rusty in here, and that's why it doesn't come off. So we just back off on the adjustment, and it'll come right off. All right, so now let's put our new one back on. But before we do that, we're going to take this hardware off. These usually just pop off, but you can just tap it. And they come right out. Like that. And you can see there's a lot of rust on here. So these we're going to put in the trash, of course. Now it's important that when you put this back together that you make sure all that rust is off. So we're just going to take the rust off. It's very important that you get all that rust off of there so that it doesn't interfere with it as it slides. Now we'll take our new hardware out. They're all the same, left and right side. But you can see inside here, there's a little tiny clip right there. You see that little clip there? This has to go on the outside. Make sure you put this in correctly. That piece of the mounting bracket has to fit in between those two pieces right there, okay? A little bit of the brake caliper grease. Same thing here, just a little bit, you don't need a lot. Now let's just put this over here. Okay, and now we'll put the replacement one up on the top. We did clean our rotor off already with brake cleaner. Just put it on. Just make sure it goes on all the way. Now this, you can see, is very loose. There's no drag on that whatsoever. So before we put our brakes on, we're going to set the drag on this. It's very important that the rotor is on all the way when you try to tighten this up. So we're just going to put this nut on here to hold the rotor in place. And the way you do it is you get in here, I'm going to use the screwdriver so you have an idea of how to do it. And you get in here with the screwdriver and you just turn the adjuster just like that. And you're just going to turn it one click at a time until the drag is sufficient. Now by sufficient, it should be able to spin with some drag on it. And you should be able to turn it with a little bit of drag. All right, let's try it and see. Okay, all right, that should do it. Let's put up the caliper and put it back together now. Don't forget to put your little plastic holder, your little rubber seal back inside here. This is how the drag should be on here. You should be able to have a little drag on it, but not too tight. All right, so now that part is done. We did put our rubber seal in the back over here, and now we're going to put our caliper back on as well. Now, this is the slide pins right here. We are going to lubricate these, so we're just going to push these out just like this. And we'll just take them out. If they're really dirty, you want to clean it off with some brake cleaner. But they're actually fairly clean, so we're just going to lubricate a little bit like this. And then we'll put it back in. You may have to wiggle it around to get it to go in properly. And make sure that your seal pops right back up on the top and the bottom. The bottom's on, and top is on. All right, and we'll take this one out here as well. Same thing, if it's dirty, you want to clean it, but this is nice and clean. We're just going to put a little bit of it on here. Now we're going to take this. We'll put it back in. Okay, just like that. Now, we're going to put that there for 1 second. We're going to grab our brake pad. The inner brake pad, we're going to put a little bit of grease on here. It makes it slide into the caliper piston a little easier. Make sure that every place that the brake pad is going to touch has a little bit of lubricant on it, the brake silicone. And then we'll take our brake pad and just push it in. And it pops right in. We'll take our next brake pad here. And now these little tiny clips right here have to pop in to those holes right there. So that's what we're going to do. Push it over here like this. And then you can see it popped in all the way. It's nice and flush against the back here and here. So we're in all the way. Next thing we're going to do is going to lubricate every place that the brake pad is going to touch. All right? And then we have to hook the bottom in down here first because it's actually, you see how it has that little bit of a that U-shaped area right there. So we put the bottom in first, just like this. Make sure that your slide pin is back all the way. Slide it over the top of the new shim that you put in. And now we'll just push this in. Push the other slide pin back in. And just tap it in. That. And now we're going to take our 2 bolts. All right, so we have our brake pads in. Everything is lubricated where the brake pad touches. We tightened up our 10mm bolts here and here. We're going to take that nut off here now because we don't need that any longer. Okay. That's it. This side is all finished. So now we're going to go over to the other side. Remember, you lubricated everything, including this anti-rattle piece right here. All right, so now we're going to go over the other side and we'll wrap this job up. Okay, so that's it. Front is done. Back is done. Well, back is almost done. I still got to get to the right side and put that side back together. But as far as you're concerned, this job is done. All right, so before you drive anywhere, you want to do 2 things. You want to check the brake fluid level in the master cylinder, make sure it's okay. And the next thing you want to do is before you drive the car, get in the car, step on the brake pedal 5, 6, 7 times, whatever, until the piston comes right back up to the top, or the brake pedal comes back up to the top. The brake pedal drops down to the floor because the pistons that we just pushed back into the bore with that tool, they need to come back out to come in contact with the new brake pads. So we need to pump that brake pedal up before we take it out for a test drive. As always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.